Hey people, welcome to the Run Testers. So the latest HOKA carbon race shoe just landed. We've got the Rocket X3, and in this video we're here to tell you how that stacks up against HOKA's other carbon racer, the Cielo X1 2. In the next few minutes we'll hopefully help you decide which of these shoes might work best for you. So let's get into it in our HOKA Rocket X3 versus Cielo X1 2.0 head to head. Now before we get into the details, from here on in we're going to be calling the Cielo X1 2.0 the Cielo X1 just for shorthand. Can't be saying that name over and over and over and over and over. So when it comes to stack, the Cielo X1 has 39mm in the heel, 32 in the forefoot for a 7mm drop. I don't have the stack for the Rocket X3 at the time of recording this. I will drop it in the caption when we get it, but it also has a 7mm drop. In our UK 8.5, US 9.5 test shoe, the Cielo X1 weighs in at 7.2 ounces or 202 grams. The Rocket X3 tips the scales at 7.5 ounces or 212 grams. On price, the Cielo X1 is the pricier shoe, £250 in the UK, $275 in the US. The Rocket X3 lands at £220 or $250. So let's take a closer look at both these shoes and how they compare and contrast. Now both shoes deploy dual density PIBA midsoles, winged carbon plates and substantial rockers. Interestingly, the Cielo's plate is winged on both sides. The Rocket appears to be winged only on the lateral side. Another major difference here is in the heel setup. The Cielo has a big cutout, leaving the medial heel kind of decoupled from the main midsole. The Rocket X3 has a big central channel down the middle, but chooses not to adopt this kind of decoupled design that you'll see from the rear view. Now a bit better here. That central channel also in the Cielo is wider. It's much wider than you're going to get in the Rocket X3. And the heel sweep appears to be marginally steeper as well on the Cielo. Up top you've got airy, breathable, single layer uppers. Both shoes opt for non-gusseted tongues, though the Rocket X3 tongue offers a little more sort of padded knitted style compared to the flat wrapping tongue that you're going to get on the Cielo X1. The heel packages are quite closely matched with similar levels of padding. Both have got heel counters, but there is a slightly narrower design in the Rocket X3. The laces on the Rocket X3 are also those kind of lace lock laces, whereas the Cielos are a little bit more traditional. When you flip the shoes over, there's probably about the same amount of rubber coverage in the forefoot here. A little bit more protection in the heel impact zones when you look at the Rocket X3. In terms of the thickness of the rubber, it's pretty much on par.
When it comes to the fit of the Cielo X1 and the Rocket X3, I've got my normal size in both, which is a UK 9, US 9.5. That's a size I use across the HOKA range, and I generally always get on really well with their shoes, and I get on really well with both of these shoes. It's the right fit for me. I've got just enough space in the forefoot of the shoes. Maybe if you're someone who likes a really roomy fit up top, could look at going half size up, but no, I like the fit of both of them, and I've used both of them for long runs and races in the case of the Cielo X1 2.0 without any problems. Good hold around the heel and midfoot without any rubbing or anything like that. So yeah, fit was fine for me in both. I'd stick to your normal size.
When it comes to fit and testing, I ran in a UK 8.5, US 9.5, which would be my regular size in HOKA shoes. I do sometimes sort of find HOKA shoes come up somewhat snug. When it comes to the Cielo X1 2, I think it also has a very snug fit. I'd call it kind of race hugging fit, and everything feels sort of nicely locked in. There's not much clearance towards the end of the toes, and I've not gone beyond 90 minutes to test that out in these shoes. It might be a worry if you go sort of further into the sort of marathon distance, but I feel like there's enough flex in these shoes, and I want that kind of security of fit on the slightly kind of wild platform, particularly for sort of shorter, faster stuff. So I think I'd stick to my regular size for anything up to the marathon. For a marathon, I may well consider going half a size up in this Cielo X1. With the Rocket X3, I'd say there's okay length in the toe box, and clearance-wise I was generally happy. Midfoot lockdown was okay for me, though I did have some looseness and slipping in the heels. I could fix that with attention to the lacing. I did have to stop a couple times on runs to sort that out. Once I did, they were fine. Some shoes I can just whack on and run. However, that's not the case here. I did have to pay a bit of attention to the lacing. I wouldn't consider dropping down a size to fix that, though, and overall I'd recommend going true to size in the Rocket X3. Now in testing, I've run close to 30 miles in both shoes. I've done everything across the pace range from slow and easy to all out. I've done some runs feeling fresh and feeling great, some on tired legs where I'm a bit more ragged. The longest time on feet was around sort of 90 minutes in both. I haven't gone beyond, and I've largely done runs on roads. I also clocked a park run PB in and the HOKA Cielo X1 2, which was a 1753. I did a side-by-side mile to tease out the finer details in the differences between these shoes as well, but more on that in a sec. Before we get into that, I really enjoyed the Cielo for all that all-out sort of guns blazing 5k effort. They're a lot of fun, punchy, propulsive, energetic. They're light and compact. You know, you've got a super shoe fit and feel. Everything is perhaps a little bit wild, and I'm not sure how much I'd want to run a full marathon in them. I might want something a bit more reliable and natural underfoot, but when I'm moving really well, they work with my kind of mid to forefoot style, with that rockering rolling me through, and the highly compressive foam sort of springs you back as you toe off. I also enjoyed moving in the Rocket X3. Right across the pace range, I get a smooth, really sort of clip along transition from this shoe. That combination of the rocker and the plate really works for me. The landings aren't too soft and wobbly, so there is some sort of more confident reliability underfoot when you compare these two shoes. You get a consistency in the platform on the Rocket X3 that I think gives you a bit more confidence to run more freely. I think with the Cielo X1, I have to focus a little bit more on foot strike, whereas the Rocket X3 sort of fades a bit more into the background. I found there was good protection from the dual density stack for the Rocket X3, sort of followed by an easy sort of rolling propulsion that helps you out of each foot strike with some energy that's probably not as aggressive or punchy as the Cielo X1. I think the Rocket X3 though would feel sort of smooth and fast, a bit more than the Cielo X1. I still find the Rocket X3 as well quite accommodating at slower paces, or when you're running a bit more ragged or tired, it's probably the better shoe. Certainly better at the lower and slower end of things than the Cielo X1 too, which I think demands really that you move with sort of top pace intent. Flip side to that is that the Rocket X3 isn't probably the fastest feeling carbon shoe. It isn't a slouch, and it does give back, but it's not going to be quite as all-out racy as the Cielo X1. So when you've got the shoes on side by side, I've just done like a mile and a half actually. I've got the Rocket X3 on the left foot, I've got the Cielo on the right foot. The big difference here I think is just one feels a lot smoother. The transitions are a lot more consistent, and that is the Rocket X3. The Cielo, you can feel the component kind of moving parts, particularly back into the heel. There's a lot more in the heel, but you definitely feel that decoupled sort of heel if you're sort of basically anything from slow up to kind of tempo pace. Where that sort of disappears is when you start to get up on your forefoot, mid to forefoot, and really punching in with the Cielo X1, where that kind of evens out a bit. It feels much smoother to me when I'm up and running. So I would say, you know, things Rocket X3 more controlled, more consistent. There's still cushion, doesn't feel quite as bouncy and energetic, and it just feels a little bit more reliable. The Cielo X1 is there to give you some all-out kind of punch. There's a more aggressive rockering, which I really notice. You will notice that decoupled heel. It basically is at its best when you're up really attacking it, not so good when you're sort of going slower. That's where you're going to have a better consistent performance in the Rocket X3. And I just think the Rocket X3 is going to be the one that you can rely on a bit more if you're not sort of up in that all-out kind of form.
On to the run test then, and I've done 60 kilometers in the HOKA Rocket X3 ahead of its launch today, and I've done about 140k in one HOKA Cielo X1 2.0, and then done a half marathon in this one as well. So I've done quite a lot of running in it and racing in it. I've done just training so far in the Rocket X3, using it for a mix of hard sessions on the road and the track. And I've enjoyed using both shoes. I enjoyed actually the first version of both shoes. I think the Rocket X2 fell into the trap of being quite similar to lots of lightweight carbon shoes. It was never really my favourite, so it wasn't a shoe I used a lot, whereas the Cielo X1 was a shoe I used an awful lot, but mostly for training, because I found it such a comfortable and bouncy and fun shoe to run in while still being pretty fast. I used it for loads and loads of marathon training, but didn't necessarily use it for races that much. The roles have kind of flipped a little bit with the second versions of the shoes. The Cielo X1 2.0 is the more aggressive, rockered, fast option in the HOKA lineup, I'd say now, whereas the Rocket X3 has a less punchy rocker on it. It's a bit smoother, a bit more comfortable, a bit more stable and supportive, and I really like all that about it. There are elements that I liked actually about the Cielo X1, and whilst the Rocket X3 isn't as bouncy as the Cielo X1 was, it is quite supportive, and it is a lot lighter, and I think is a really good fast training shoe as well as racing option. Now, the Cielo X1 2.0 is a lot less stable than the Rocket X3 and the first version of this shoe. It's a shoe that will put some people off by having a very aggressive ride, and the instability caused by the medial side cutout means that it's more one that you wouldn't use loads and loads in training, I'd say, unlike the Cielo X1, because it is a little bit wobbly underfoot. As said, I have done quite a lot of training in the Cielo, including a 35k or something like that marathon training session. Like, I do think if you don't mind big punchy rockers and a little bit of instability, it's a really good racing option all round. It's very fast, it's got a firmer feel, I'd say, than the Rocket X3, and really it's all about just driving you from the midfoot onto that rocker. Like, you just get pushed forward, very aggressively with this shoe, and it creates really nice fast turnover, but there's a lot of bounce in the shoe as well. Like, that is how it's similar to the Cielo X1, which was a very bouncy shoe. This isn't quite as comfortable and supportive around the heel as the Cielo X1, but certainly still has a lot of that bounce whilst having that more aggressive feel underfoot and lighter design than the Cielo X1. Used it for a couple of half marathons, never whilst in cracking shape, I think it's fair to say, but I have done some training sessions whilst in really good shape, and I do think it's a really fast and good option for races of any distance, but might be a bit too wobbly and aggressive for some, looking at things like the marathon in particular. And then the Rocket X3 is more comfortable and kind of relaxed on the run. You have got a rocker here, but it's not as punchy off the toes as the Cielo X1 2.0 is. It doesn't drive you forward in the same way. You get a lot more comfort and support in the heel of the Rocket X3, and then you get pushed through your foot strike. A little bit of bounce, not quite as bouncy as the Cielo X1 2.0, I'd say. The foam has a little bit more softness, so you sink in a bit, and you do get bounce back, but not quite to the same extent as with the Cielo X1 2.0, which is a bit more responsive. But you can certainly still run faster in the Rocket X3. Like, I've done some really hard track sessions in this shoe, going down and doing 400 meter reps, sub 70 400 meter reps, that kind of thing. I've cruised through some more marathon pace efforts in it, and I do think it's got a really appealing all-round design because it is really lightweight. It's lighter than the Cielo. You have got those Piba foams in the midsole giving you a bit of bounce. Obviously the carbon plates in there, so even though it is built to offer a bit more support than something like the Cielo without those crazy cutouts in the bottom, there's just central ones on this shoe. It's still lightweight, fast, all the things you'd expect from a carbon plate shoe. One that has the added bonus of being fairly comfortable and a bit more stable around the heel in particular. I did do a short run wearing both shoes at the same time, and yeah, the difference is quite marked when you're on the run with them. You get a little bit of bounce and a nice smooth roll through with the Rocket X3, but things are pushed to the max with the Cielo X1, which has that firmer feeling, that rocker really thrusting you onto your toes and really pushing you forward. It's a lot more comfort, I think, at the back of the Rocket X3 in particular, a bit more support, and yeah, a slightly more relaxed ride all round while still feeling very light on the foot, whereas the Cielo X1 2.0 is all go, 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 pushing you forward, bouncing you on.
Verdict then, and I like both shoes. I think they both have merit in their own right. I think the way that I would break it down is, to me, like the Rocket X3 is almost your carbon race shoe with stabilizers on, whereas the Cielo X1, it's like whipping those stabilizers off and then kind of releasing the commit or bust powers of a slightly more wild shoe. The Cielo X1 2 is faster, but it's a bit more untamed. I'd definitely pick it for pushing all out for races up to the half marathon. At the marathon distance, I'd perhaps be a little bit more cautious with a Cielo if I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to find or hold my form right up to the finish line. If I was hedging my bets over the 26.2, I think the Rocket X3 might not offer the same punch, but you do get a bit more guaranteed reliability and comfort, and I'd back it to hold my hand home in those last 6 miles more than the Cielo, which would be running ahead asking why I'm not keeping up. So basically I think the banker is the Rocket X3, the all-out risky one is the Cielo. I think the Rocket X3 has more training versatility as well because of that. It's a shoe that I'd be able to use to clock a wider range of runs outside of racing. The Cielo X1 I'd only really pick for fast. I've got questions on the Rocket X3, whether I'd choose it over the Mach X2 from HOKA. It's probably got more race day potential, but the Mach X2 might be a better training workhorse that's much cheaper for those sort of bigger daily training miles. So if you were thinking about adding 2 HOKA shoes to your rotation, there's potentially value in going for like a Cielo rather than a Rocket and a Mach X2 combo. But if I had to choose one shoe to make an impact in my rotations, I think it would be the Cielo X1 2. I think it offers more for race day versus the competition than the Rocket X3 brings generally to training and racing.
So I think the Cielo X1 2.0 and the Rocket X3 are both good carbon plate racing shoes. I think they'll suit different runners and offer slightly different things. You've got the extra support, a bit more comfort with the Rocket X3 in a lightweight design that does roll through nicely but has a more natural ride for sure than the Cielo X1 2.0, which is very punchy, pushes you onto the toes really quickly. It's a pretty explosive feel, but isn't as comfortable, isn't as stable as the Rocket X3, but I think it's probably flat out faster, especially for shorter events, like up to half marathon distance, the Cielo X1 2.0 is the fastest shoe, I think, for anyone really, but you might not get on too well with instability. Over the course of a marathon, I think any runner might have a case for looking at the Rocket X3 because the extra comfort and support you get there might just come into play in the final 5k, 10k of the marathon. You might have slightly fresher legs, be slightly less beat up because of the extra comfort in the Rocket X3, especially at the heel, and it's probably also going to be a bit friendlier if your form starts to break down and that kind of thing. You have to be a bit more on it, I think, to get the most from the Cielo X1 2.0, whereas the Rocket X3 is that bit more relaxed, while still being, like I say, very lightweight and fast. I think it's important to say again, the Rocket X3 is not a slow shoe by any means. It's also not a crazily stable shoe. It's still not as stable as a training shoe. It has got a high stack of pretty soft foam, but it is a bit more stable than the Cielo X1 2.0. Maybe isn't quite as flat out fast, but does have a lot of other characteristics that might make it a more suitable option for lots of runners, especially looking at longer events, and it's a bit cheaper to boot. So yeah, two really good options will suit people slightly differently. I think if I was just going for a flat out fast time on race day, personally I'd probably go for the Cielo X1 2.0 myself, but I'd probably be more inclined to recommend the Rocket X3 to most people because it has a more approachable ride, and like I say, it's a bit cheaper, which is always good.
So that's been our head-to-head between two of HOKA's top-tier carbon race shoes. Hope it helped you zero in on which shoe might suit you best. Give us a like if it did. If you're not subbed to the channel, then why not? What's wrong with you? Come on, we need you on there. Get on with it. Get it done. If you're after a full review of either of these shoes, I'm going to pop those up on the channel now. Go get watching. As ever, thanks very much for stopping by. And until next time, happy running, people.